She walked in with mud still on her boots. Not Oregon mud. Not the soft, earthy, pine-scented kind. This was dark, sticky, almost black. It clung to the treads like tar, leaving faint prints across our tile. And the thing is, she didn't notice. She just stepped over them like they weren't there, dropped her canvas duffel by the door, and said, "Don't ask me anything yet." Then she went upstairs. That's the first time I thought something followed her home. Not literally, not like a ghost or anything. At least, that's what I told myself at the time. But something had changed. Not just in her mom too. Deirdre came back looking like she'd forgotten how to smile. Her voice had a new kind of flatness. No inflection, no warmth. Like she was afraid that any emotion might crack her open and spill something out. They were only supposed to be gone for 4 days. Some boutique recalibration escape with forest bathing, breath work, and, I quote, primal feminine reawakening. I laughed when I first heard it. Joked that they'd come back with flower crowns and spirit animal tattoos. But they didn't come back with flowers. They came back silent. That night, I asked if everything was okay. Nadine stared at the TV and said, "Don't worry. It's already done." I didn't know what it was. Still don't. The next morning, she was gone by 7 a.m. No note, no breakfast, not even a coffee mug left out. I checked her location on my phone. She was at a clinic downtown. Not our usual one. Some private place I'd never heard of. Reviews were turned off on Google. The building didn't even have a sign. That's when I called her dad. And you know what he said? "I was wondering when you'd notice." He was already in his truck when I called. Told me he'd meet me there in 20 minutes. He'd been waiting for this moment. Which meant he knew something I didn't. When we pulled up, her car was already parked in the back. Her mom's too. We waited in silence. I watched the tinted doors like they might open and spill answers onto the pavement. But we didn't get answers. We got a conversation we weren't supposed to hear. A nurse walked outside to toss a bag into the waste bin. She turned back toward the open door and called out, "We've got the second DNA sample. Should I mark it maternal or fraternal?" There was a pause. Then a woman's voice replied, "Neither. Just label it unknown male. She doesn't want it traceable." That's when her dad gripped the steering wheel so tight his knuckles went white. He didn't look at me when he said it. He just whispered like the words physically hurt to say. That's not her daughter anymore. I didn't ask him what he meant. I couldn't. Because if I said it out loud, if I even acknowledged that sentence, that's not her daughter anymore. I was admitting something had changed forever. And maybe I wasn't ready for that. We sat there in his old truck, the kind that smells like motor oil and wintergreen gum, both of us staring at the clinic doors. They stayed closed. Time slowed. My thoughts were racing in loops. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe Nadine was helping someone else. Maybe the DNA thing wasn't even about her. Maybe it was some kind of anonymous donation thing? Yeah, right. You don't label DNA from a stranger as unknown male unless someone's hiding something. Wendell didn't say another word. He just reached into the glove box and pulled out a crumpled envelope. Handed it to me without looking. Inside, photos. Grainy, low resolution, clearly taken in secret. My wife. In Oregon. Hugging a man. Not just hugging. That kind of forehead-touching, closed eyes, soul-exchanging intimacy you don't even do with a casual affair. This wasn't some side fling. Whoever this guy was, he meant something. I recognized the background. The retreat lodge. The sacred eucalyptus garden Nadine had posted about last year when she first started healing. Back then, I thought it was just yoga and overpriced essential oils. I didn't know it was the beginning of something else. I turned to Wendell, gripping the photos like they might burst into flames. "Who took these?" I asked. He finally looked at me. "Deirdre hired someone. She thought Nadine was in danger. Emotionally, mentally. She started noticing things last year. Gaps in memory. Sleepwalking. Secret phone calls. And then this man shows up. We don't know his name. Just that he's been following her. Or maybe she's been following him. Either way, it's not good." I wanted to scream. Cry. Throw up. But all I could do was whisper one question. Why didn't anyone tell me? He shook his head slowly. Because we weren't sure she even knew. We thought she was being manipulated. But when Deirdre came back from Oregon, she wouldn't talk. Not to me. Not to her sister. She shut down. And now, this visit to the clinic? It's not a checkup. It's confirmation. I stared back at the doors. Nadine was still inside. Confirmation of what? Pregnancy? A lie? Or something far worse? Then Wendell added something that chilled me deeper than anything else. She wasn't supposed to come back. Those 5 words hung in the air like smoke in a burning house. What does that mean? I asked. He turned the key in the ignition, the truck rumbling awake beneath us. It means Deirdre told her not to. Told her to stay there, with him. But she came back anyway. And now she's tying up loose ends. Loose ends? Was I a loose end? Before I could ask, the clinic door opened. And Nadine stepped out, alone, clutching a sealed manila envelope to her chest like it was radioactive. She looked thinner. Her hair was tied back, but messy. Her clothes didn't match, something she never let happen. She glanced left, then right, didn't see us, and walked briskly to her car. She didn't look scared. She looked focused, like she had a plan. And I was starting to realize I had no idea what it was, or whether I was even part of it anymore. I should have followed her. I know that now. When Nadine got into her car, she didn't hesitate for even a second. She moved like she was on autopilot. Like her entire body was being piloted by something cold and calculated. She backed out of the lot, didn't even glance at her mirrors, and pulled out onto the street with the kind of smoothness that told me she'd rehearsed this. Wendell and I sat there like fools, like statues. I think we both assumed she'd come back to the car for something, maybe fumble with her keys, give us a window. But no, she vanished down the road, the sealed envelope still clutched tight in her lap. She didn't look back once. I snapped out of it first. Follow her, I said. We have to follow her. But Wendell didn't move. He was staring at the clinic door, brows furrowed, jaw tight. Something else had caught his attention. And then we both saw it. A nurse walked out again, not the same one from before. This one was older, with short blonde hair and a clipboard. She came right up to the trash bin near the curb, popped the lid, and threw something in. A bag. Biohazard markings on the side. Then she paused, looked around, and dropped a small slip of paper into the trash beside it. That little gesture felt odd, like it wasn't supposed to be part of the routine, like it wasn't trash at all. The moment she went back inside, Wendell opened his door and said, "Stay here." I didn't argue. He walked across the street like a man who'd done this before. In another life, maybe. Fire chief or not, he had a presence, the kind that made you believe he could open any locked door just by knocking loud enough. He came back with the paper in hand. Just a post-it note. Yellow. A single line written in blue pen. Tell the husband nothing. Sample B inconclusive. Running test C off record. That was it. No names. No context. No signature. But the weight of those 12 words sat on my chest like a sandbag. They were talking about me. I was the husband. Sample B. That had to be the second DNA sample, right? The one Nadine submitted. Or maybe it was mine, and I never even knew it. I felt sick. Like the world had gone sideways, and no one told me. I wanted to scream. Instead, I said the dumbest thing possible. She could still be telling the truth. Wendell didn't laugh. He didn't roll his eyes or shake his head. He just looked tired. Like someone who knew the truth, but didn't want to say it out loud. She came back for a reason, he said quietly. And it's not to fix things. It's to cover them up. That stuck with me. It still does. When I got home later that night, Nadine was already there. She was in the kitchen, barefoot, drinking peppermint tea like it was any other Tuesday. She acted like nothing happened. Asked me how my day was. Said we should do a game night soon, just the two of us. Her voice was syrupy, like she was trying too hard to be normal. But her eyes never met mine. And the envelope was gone. I checked her purse when she went to shower. Nothing. I checked the trash. Clean. She'd either hidden it, destroyed it, or, worst of all, delivered it to someone else. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay in bed beside her, listening to her soft, steady breathing, and wondered what secrets were sitting inches from my face. Who the man in the photo was. Why Deirdre hadn't come back. What Test C was. What it meant to be labeled unknown male. At 2:43 a.m., Nadine mumbled something in her sleep. It was barely audible, but I heard it. Just 2 words. He knows. I didn't move. Didn't breathe. I just kept staring at the ceiling, pretending I didn't hear. But in that moment, I knew. She wasn't talking about Wendell. She was talking about me. The next morning felt artificial. The sun came through the windows like it was trying too hard. Everything in the kitchen looked too clean, too untouched. Nadine had already left by the time I got downstairs. No note. No text. Just the faint scent of her peppermint shampoo lingering in the air, like the house was pretending she'd been here recently. I wandered around, pacing between the fridge and the window like some aimless ghost. I kept replaying that moment from the night before, the way she mumbled "he knows" in her sleep. I wanted to convince myself it was just a dream, a misheard phrase. Maybe she was talking about Wendell. Maybe it was nonsense. But no matter how I twisted it in my head, the tone she'd used, low, nervous, almost regretful, told me the truth. She knew I was onto her. And I hadn't even done anything yet. That was about to change. I wasn't a brave man, and I won't pretend otherwise. I'm not the kind of guy who confronts people, or digs through phones, or demands answers in dramatic scenes. I'm the type who hesitates, who hopes things fix themselves. But that morning, something cracked inside me. I couldn't keep tiptoeing around my own damn house. So I started searching. At first, just the usual places: her nightstand, her purse, the little junk drawer in the kitchen where we keep loose batteries and expired coupons. Nothing. No sign of the envelope, no test results, no hidden phone. Then I got bold. I went upstairs to the hallway closet. The one Nadine always kept locked because of old tax files, she said. Which was weird, because we filed everything online. But I never questioned it before. I guess when you're in love, or trying really hard to stay in love, you ignore things that don't make sense. Turns out, she hadn't locked it this time. Inside was a small gray plastic box with a cheap combination lock. I almost gave up there, but then I noticed something stuck under the box, a receipt. From a gas station just outside Eugene, Oregon. It was dated the morning after she was supposed to be at the silent retreat. Paid in cash. I turned the box over, hoping for a clue. That's when I saw it. 317. Written in faded Sharpie near the base. Could have been random. Could have been a price tag. But I tried it on the lock anyway. It clicked open. Inside, a burner phone, a pack of prenatal vitamins, and a single Polaroid photograph. The photo showed Nadine, unmistakably her, standing barefoot in a forest. Not the kind of forest you go hiking in. This one looked almost wrong. The trees were too thin. The ground was soaked in shadow. And standing behind her, partially hidden, was a man. His face was blurry. Not from movement, not from distance. Just blurred, like the photo itself had rejected the idea of showing him clearly. But his hand was resting on Nadine's shoulder. Possessive. Familiar. And Nadine, she was smiling. Not just smiling, glowing. I sat down right there on the floor, the photo trembling in my hand. Every part of me wanted to believe this was a misunderstanding, a leftover from years ago, but I knew that wasn't true. The timestamp on the back read 11 days ago. That's when I turned on the burner phone. It took a minute to boot up. When it did, there were only 3 contacts in it. One was saved as just a single dot. Another said retreat. The third was a string of numbers with no name at all. There were only 4 texts, all recent. One of them hit me like a hammer. From, "You kept your promise. No blood this time. But the connection is slipping. She needs to return." No blood this time? Return to what? I couldn't breathe. My head buzzed like 1,000 bees were inside my skull. I texted Wendell. Just one word. Come. No explanation. He didn't need one. I knew this wasn't just cheating anymore. This wasn't about an affair, or a lie, or even a baby. This was about control. About someone, or something, trying to pull my wife away from reality, and possibly already succeeding. Wendell showed up faster than I expected, 23 minutes flat. He didn't even park in the driveway. He left the truck halfway on the curb, engine running, stormed through the door without knocking, and found me sitting on the floor in front of the open closet, still holding the Polaroid like it might bite me. I didn't say anything. I just handed it to him. He didn't flinch. He just stared at the photo for a long time, eyes scanning Nadine's face, then drifting to the blurred figure behind her. After what felt like hours, he finally spoke. "I've seen that forest." The words hit me like a body blow. He wasn't shocked. He wasn't confused. He was remembering. I asked him what he meant, but he just shook his head, muttered something under his breath, and sat down across from me on the hallway carpet. The silence was deafening. He tapped the edge of the photo against his knee 3 times before finally saying, "Deirdre went there, too. Years ago, before Nadine was even born. That's how she found it. The retreat." I blinked, not sure what I was hearing. "You mean she knew about this place?" He nodded. "She didn't call it a retreat back then. She said it was an origin site. Some kind of ancient energy pocket in the woods. Said it only opened every few years, and only for certain people. I thought it was just spiritual nonsense. One of those things women say when they're chasing something inside themselves. I was stunned. She went before? She went twice, he replied. The first time she came back crying. Couldn't sleep for days. Said she'd seen something, felt something, that didn't belong in our world. The second time, she came back pregnant. Everything inside me went still. You're saying? I don't know what I'm saying, Wendell interrupted. But she always said Nadine was special. She used that word over and over. Special. Chosen. She'd talk about dreams and whispers and things I didn't understand. She kept journals. Hundreds of them. All filled with symbols and sketches and letters she claimed were dictated to her while she slept. I asked him where those journals were. He said they were gone. Burned. By Deirdre herself. The week before they left for Oregon, she built a fire in the backyard and fed every single one of them to the flames. Said they weren't safe to keep anymore. That the knowledge inside them had done enough damage. I felt dizzy. Everything I thought I knew about my wife, about her family, was unraveling like rotten thread. The journals, the retreat, the forest, the photo, and now this. A man no one could name. A pregnancy no one could confirm. A message saying no blood this time. And the worst part? Nadine was acting like nothing was wrong. Like I was the one imagining it all. Wendell stood up slowly. There's one thing left. One thing Deirdre gave me before they left. Said I shouldn't open it unless she didn't come back. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small, sealed envelope. Unmarked. Heavy. It looked old, like it had been handled too many times and carried too far. The edges were soft from wear, and there was a faint smell of dried herbs, or maybe just mold. You never opened it? I asked. He shook his head. Didn't want to. Still don't. But now. He sat back down, slid a pocket knife from his belt, and carefully sliced the top open. Inside was a single key. Bronze. Ornate. It looked almost ceremonial. Attached was a torn scrap of paper with only 3 words scribbled on it. Under the nursery. My stomach turned to lead. Nadine and I didn't have kids. We didn't even want kids. But that didn't mean the room wasn't still there. The unused nursery at the end of the upstairs hallway. We painted it soft green when we first bought the house, back when things still felt hopeful. It had sat untouched for years. I hadn't stepped foot in there in months. We went up together, slowly. The air grew colder as we approached, and not just because it was late October. The door creaked when I opened it. The rocking chair in the corner, the one Deirdre gifted us for when the time comes, swayed slightly, as if we'd interrupted something. The carpet was spotless. The crib was empty. The air was still. But then Wendell tapped his boot against the floor, and it echoed, hollow. He dropped to his knees and started feeling around the floorboards until his fingers found the edge of a seam. There was a hidden hatch. It took both of us to pry it open. Beneath the nursery floor was a small chamber, no bigger than a crawl space, lined with stone. Not drywall. Stone. Old, gray, uneven. Like it wasn't built with the house, but uncovered. Or worse, preserved. At the center of the chamber was a box. A black wooden box, carved with the same symbols I'd seen scribbled in Nadine's sketchbooks back when she was in art school. Symbols I thought were just decorative. Spirals, hooks, circles inside triangles. Now they looked intentional. Wendell hesitated. Then he lifted the lid. And inside was something that didn't make sense. A bundle of hair, tied with a strip of cloth. A necklace Nadine hadn't worn in years. And a photograph. Of me. Sleeping. I didn't even remember the photo being taken. That's what terrified me the most. It was me. Definitely me. Sleeping on my side, mouth slightly open, the curve of my shoulder half exposed under the bedsheet. The picture had been taken from maybe 6 feet away. My bedside lamp was off, but there was still a faint orange glow, probably from the hallway light seeping in under the door. Meaning, whoever took it had left the door cracked. On purpose. I just kept staring at it. My fingers went numb, but I couldn't put it down. Something about the angle, the way my hand was curled awkwardly against my chest, made my skin crawl. I sleep on the left side. The wall side. Nadine always slept between me and the door, which meant someone would have had to step over her to get this shot, or she took it herself. Wendell's voice cut through my spinning thoughts. That necklace, he said, pointing into the box. Deirdre used to wear one just like it. She said it was for protection. A charm from the retreat. Some kind of gate marker. Gate marker? I repeated, my voice sounding distant, foreign in my own ears. Symbolic or literal, he said. She never made the difference clear. But she believed there were places, thresholds, that weren't meant to be crossed. This was one of them. That forest, the lodge, the rituals, they weren't about healing. They were about summoning. Or remembering. Or maybe just letting something in. I didn't want to believe any of this. My brain kept looking for logic. Maybe Nadine had gone through something traumatic on that trip. Maybe this was her way of processing it, acting out, retreating into mysticism. The photo? Maybe she'd taken it as some bizarre expression of control. Maybe she never meant to show it to me. Maybe it wasn't supposed to mean anything. But the lockbox, the symbols, the DNA samples, it was too much. It meant something. I just didn't understand what, yet. Wendell carefully closed the box, lowered it back into the hollow beneath the nursery floor, and slid the panel shut. We didn't even talk about what to do with it. Neither of us wanted to touch the contents again. It felt like putting the lid back on a coffin. Downstairs, the house felt different. Like it had shifted on its foundation. I know that sounds dramatic, but it's the only way I can explain it. The walls felt closer. The shadows longer. I kept expecting Nadine to walk in from the back patio or come humming down the stairs, completely oblivious to what we'd just uncovered. But she didn't. Instead, Wendell poured himself a glass of whiskey and sat at the kitchen table, staring into the middle distance like he was back in a burning building, waiting for the floor to give out. Then he said something I wasn't expecting. I think Deirdre tried to stop it this time. Stop what? I asked. The ritual. The passing down. Whatever they call it. She always believed Nadine's birth had tied her to that place. That some thread was still connected. That if she went back, they'd finish what they started. He looked at me, eyes tired but sharp. She never wanted Nadine to return. That's why she went with her. Not to support her. To intervene. That was the first time I considered that Deirdre might not be missing by choice. We sat in silence for nearly an hour. At some point, Wendell left. He said he had to check something, but didn't explain what. I didn't ask. I didn't even walk him out. My head was swimming, and I needed to be alone. That night, I couldn't bring myself to sleep in our bed. I stayed on the couch, lights on, every sound in the house feeling too loud. The heater kicking on made me jump. The fridge hum felt like a warning. Around 2 a.m., I stood up to get water. As I passed the hallway mirror near the stairwell, I stopped. Something was wrong. The reflection was off. I know how crazy this sounds. I know sleep deprivation and stress can mess with your perception. But I swear to God, I looked in the mirror and for half a second, I saw someone else standing behind me. Not Nadine. Not Wendell. A man. Tall. Thin. Wearing something loose and pale. His face was completely still, like a painting, but his eyes were focused. On me. I spun around. Nothing. When I turned back to the mirror, it was just me again. Pale, unshaven, bags under my eyes. But my reflection seemed delayed, like it had taken a second to catch up. I stumbled back, knocked over the coat rack, cursed loudly enough to wake the neighbor's dog. And then, my phone buzzed. One message. From. You opened it. That was not yours to see. I froze. The burner phone was upstairs, locked in the office. This was my phone. My number. My account. And someone, or something, had crossed over. I didn't sleep that night. I didn't even try. I sat on the couch with every light in the house on, holding my phone in one hand and a fireplace poker in the other, like I was waiting for something to break through the front door. But nothing came. Just silence. That humming, wrong silence, where even the air feels like it's listening. The message was still on my screen. You opened it. That was not yours to see. No number. No thread history. No contact name. Just that one line. I tried to screenshot it, but it vanished as soon as I tapped the screen. The notification, the bubble, gone. I even checked my app logs. No record of a new message. Not in my texts. Not in Signal. Not in any of the encrypted apps I use for work. It was like it had bypassed the phone entirely and just appeared. Like it had wanted to be seen, and now that it was, it didn't need to exist anymore. Around 6 a.m., the sun rose, but it didn't help. The house still felt unnatural. Like the walls were holding their breath. I showered in silence. Got dressed. Then I did something I should have done a week ago. I went to Nadine's art studio. She'd been renting the space behind an old auto garage about 10 minutes from our place. Said it helped her disconnect from the domestic mind. I used to find that charming. Now it felt like a lie wrapped in a monologue. I had a spare key. She'd given it to me last year when she wanted me to drop off some canvases for a show she never ended up attending. The garage door creaked when I opened it, the smell of dried paint and citrus cleaner thick in the air. It looked normal at first, chaotic, but normal. Canvases leaned against every wall, most of them unfinished. A few featured blurry outlines of figures. Forest spirals. One had the silhouette of a man with a ring of red light behind his head. No face, no hands, just the faint suggestion of presence. Then I noticed the back wall. A curtain hung there. Black. Heavy. I'd always assumed it was just covering a storage shelf. But behind it was a second door. Steel. No knob. Just a keypad. I stood there for a while, heart racing. I had no idea what code to even try, until something clicked in my memory, the lockbox from earlier. 317. Sharpened numbers on the bottom corner. Maybe it was nothing. But maybe Nadine used the same code for everything. I punched it in. The light blinked green. The door hissed open. The room was small, windowless, cold. The walls were covered in corkboard and pinned sketches, diagrams of bodies, but not human ones. Spindly, elongated, twisted in ways that defied normal structure. Some had dozens of eyes. Others had none. A few were covered in rows of teeth, not in mouths, but scattered across their skin like tumors. There was a table in the middle. On it sat a single cassette recorder. Old, dusty, the kind with 2 buttons and a built-in speaker. There was a tape already inside, labeled in Nadine's handwriting. Entry 4, Incorporation. I pressed play. The hiss of static filled the room. Then her voice. But it wasn't her voice, not exactly. It was strained, breathy, and beneath it, something else. A deeper tone, almost imperceptible, moving underneath her words like a second layer of meaning. They said it would be easier this time, that the vessel was prepared. But he's fighting it. He dreams too loudly. He remembers too much. They don't like that. They said the thread must be cut clean, or it tangles. I paused the tape, hands shaking. She was talking about me. I knew she was. I was the one dreaming. I was the one asking questions. I was the thread. I hit play again. Deirdre tried to block the passage. That's why they took her. She broke the chain. But it's too late now. The gate was opened. He looked into it. He can't unsee. The voice is already waking beneath his skin. The voice beneath his skin. I stopped the tape and took 3 steps back from the table, like it might lurch forward and grab me. My scalp was crawling. I could feel every hair on my arms standing upright. I was sweating through my shirt, and the cold in that room was so sharp it felt like it was etching itself into my bones. I turned to leave and froze. Someone had painted something on the back of the steel door. Not recently. It was old, faded, but still visible beneath the rust and dust. A perfect circle, surrounded by 13 tiny black handprints. The same circle from the necklace in the box. The same one from her journals, and that twisted Polaroid. I ran. I didn't even close the door. I just locked the building and drove without thinking, my hands clenched so tight around the wheel I could barely feel my fingers. I was halfway home before I realized I wasn't driving toward safety. I was driving toward her. Nadine. She was waiting when I got there. Standing in the doorway. Calm. Like she'd been watching the road. She smiled as I stepped out of the car. But it wasn't her smile. It was too still. Too symmetrical. Too knowing. And for the first time since this nightmare began, I didn't feel angry. Or scared. Or betrayed. I felt hunted. She didn't speak right away. Just stood in the doorway. Her face lit softly by the porch light, the cool morning mist curling around her like fabric. Her hair was damp. Her eyes were steady, unblinking, but not empty. Not evil. Not distant. And that threw me. I'd prepared myself for anything, screaming, lies, mind games, even violence. But not this strange, calm quiet. She stepped aside and motioned for me to come in. And for some reason, I did. We sat at the kitchen table like 2 people trying to pretend it was still just a marriage. She made tea. Mint, of course. She even used the honey I liked, not the agave syrup she usually preferred. She didn't say a word as she placed my mug in front of me. She only sat down and waited. Finally, I broke the silence. I found the box. She nodded. I saw the photo. The burner phone. The cassette. The room behind your studio. Again, she nodded. And then, she finally said, softly, I knew you would. My throat tightened. Then why not tell me? Why let me spiral through this alone? Her eyes didn't flinch. Because you had to choose to know. Otherwise, you wouldn't survive it. That answer hit me in a place I didn't know existed. She continued, and this time her voice trembled, not with fear, but exhaustion. Grief. I wasn't cheating on you, Merrick. There is no other man. There was, once, but not like you think. Not in the way that matters now. The place I went, the forest, the retreat. It's not what people think it is. It doesn't give answers. It gives truth. And truth always asks for something back. I wanted to interrupt, but I didn't. I let her speak. I think some part of me had been waiting years to actually hear her again. The real her. Not the version covered in affirmations and moon rituals and weird, forced smiles. She went on. They used to call it a gate. Or a crossing. Or sometimes just the opening. My mother went there before me. Her mother too. It's generational. Not a curse, not a cult. Just a current. A pull. A calling. And every few decades, it pulls harder than usual. This time, it pulled through me. And it woke something up in you. I was shaking, but not from fear anymore. Something deeper. Like recognition. Why me? I asked. Why am I the one who had to see all this? She smiled. Not the cold, strange smile from before, but the real one. The smile I fell in love with. Because you stayed. She reached into her pocket and slid something across the table. The photograph. The one of me sleeping. But now, it looked different. It wasn't eerie anymore. I could see something else in it now. Her shadow behind the camera. A softness in the room. The light. The peace. I took it because I was afraid I'd lose you, she whispered. That night, something in me cracked open. I heard them. Not voices. Just presence. I thought I had to run. To disappear. But you held on. You searched. You asked. You saw. Tears welled in her eyes. And somehow that changed it. Broke the cycle. They let me go. We sat there in the silence that followed, the heaviness in the air slowly unraveling. No more riddles. No more fear. Just the two of us, finally able to breathe in the same room again. Later that day, Wendell returned. He looked surprised when he saw us both there. Not broken, not possessed, just present. Nadine hugged him like a daughter who'd just come home from war. He didn't ask questions. He didn't need to. We burned the box together. In the fire pit in the backyard, surrounded by the early autumn breeze. The hair, the necklace, the photo, even the cassette tape. Gone. Nothing left but ash and warmth. We planted lavender over the spot. Weeks passed. Then months. Nadine left the studio behind. Closed the chapter without anger. She started painting again, on smaller canvases. Lighter colors. Her lines were looser now. Gentler. Sometimes she even laughed in the kitchen while listening to old music. And I stopped checking shadows. Stopped jumping at the fridge hum. I started trusting the quiet again. We never spoke about the forest again. Not directly. But sometimes, in the stillness between conversations, I'd feel her squeeze my hand just a little tighter. And that was enough. Because whatever had been waiting on the other side of that strange, ancient place, whatever it was that wanted to pull her away from me, it lost. Not because we fought it, but because we held on to each other. And in the end, that thread, the one I thought had snapped, was the one that saved us both.